program for you, all the very latest. And speaking where our Fox correspondent just was, our own White House correspondent, John Decker, is live at the NATO summit. President Trump en route. He'll get there later today. It really kicks off tomorrow from the United States participation point of view. I'll get it out there. A little hot out there as I get going. John Decker will join us live from the Netherlands right at the top of the 10 o'clock this morning to give us the very, very latest. And there's a lot of late in all of this. President Trump really blasting both Israel and Iran after that announcement of a ceasefire or a truce between the two. We'll come back to that. I did have to say, I think it's kind of refreshing in this politically ambivalent or politically at times bizarre environment we have in this country when it comes to politics. With something serious like this, I think it's refreshing when a president actually says to the media what they're thinking. And last night when the president said, or this morning, and of course he's had back and forth with the media on the way to NATO, just had some back and forth criticizing Israel and Iran, doubling down on the devastation and destruction to Iran's nuclear program as he heads to NATO. But when the president basically says, and I'm paraphrasing, mad or upset with both Israel and Iran, the president said they've been fighting each other so long they don't know what the F they're doing. And he said the word. And it just shows you, I think, a level of genuineness. I mean that sincerely, a frustration, doing what he can, doing all he can do to get them to stand down after the action the United States took, really on behalf of Israel and the United States, and I would actually say the world, destroying or damaging so badly those three very serious strategic nuclear sites in Iran. We're going to have the latest, by the way, on the state budget battle right here in New Hampshire. Yesterday, we had a packed show for you, kicking off the show yesterday with Governor Kelly Ayotte in our Concord Capitol studios here. And by the way, good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. Good morning, New England. Good morning, worldwide. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the pulse of an age. Governor Ayotte yesterday still teeing off on Senate and House negotiators who passed that 2-year budget for New Hampshire that will be voted on the floor of both and going to Governor Ayotte's desk just last week. Sent Governor Ayotte blasting, saying the retirement funding for our first responders is not acceptable, that it's not fully funded or restored or fixed. And again, this gets confusing. It's a big 2-year budget for New Hampshire, but there's a real political lines are being drawn, a real battle between Governor Ayotte, who happens to be a Republican governor. Republican, as you know, Senate President Sharon Carson is a Republican. So is the House Speaker in New Hampshire, a Republican. So really, in the Senate, the state Senate usually plays a very dominant role in forming budgets. But the governor said yesterday she wanted to be involved. She told them what she would support and what she would not support. She promised when she ran for office that she was going to fight for first responders and that retirement piece. And she said yesterday that communities like Nashua, New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, we had the head of the firefighters, professional firefighters in New Hampshire. She said departments like Manchester would see 27, almost 30 senior members of the fire department retire if this retirement piece isn't fixed or funded. I think it's about $340 million to do. I don't know the exact numbers, a lot, of course, but the battle continuing. We're going to hear from Senate President Carson live this morning at 9:15 to respond. She stands by that budget as she did Friday on the show, saying there's only so much to go around, but Governor Ayotte laying down the lines in the sand, saying she'll veto this. So Senator Carson's coming up at 9:15. State Senator Dan Innes is coming up at 10 o'clock after John Decker. Our own White House correspondent reports live from The Hague in the Netherlands, where the NATO conference or summit is happening. And the dynamics could not be more incredible right now. Last night, after the president and the White House announced that he had a deal between Israel and Iran to stand down and end their hostilities, and then there was some back and forth. Apparently, missiles were fired at Israel. Now, this would have been different time, our time, of course, with the time change, but Israel, according to reports this morning, was set to respond at Iran for breaking that agreement, and Tehran denied that the missiles came from Iran into Israel. Israel, according to reports this morning, and we'll hear from our own White House correspondent, John Decker, Israel was in the process this morning of retaliating against regime targets in Iran when President Trump called the Prime Minister Netanyahu on his before he went to NATO, saying, "Stand down, knock it off, stand down." President Trump not too happy. And according to reports, Israelis turned around, their plans. They have not retaliated. So we'll see where this is all fluid today. Now, what's really incredibly interesting, I think, is look at, even though we're talking about really life and death stuff in between these two countries, and the United States is now really firmly in the middle after taking the action Saturday evening. But the markets today are way up. Yesterday they were up. I don't know. I'm not a market person. We had Doug Tengden, our own economic expert. Markets were up over 300 coming out of the weekend with all this. Today they're up as well this morning. And oil prices, get this one, as Iran yesterday was threatening to shut or close the Strait of Hormuz, where a lot of that oil flows out to places like China, much less to us these days. Oil prices are way down this morning, despite all this uncertainty in the Middle East. Oil prices are down. The markets are up. Go figure. All right, we're going to be bringing in the Senate president in just a moment. J-Dog, we've not mentioned it, but it's pretty apparent if you've been outdoors. We have a lot of heat and humidity today, maybe a record. Just taking a drink of some cold water, haven't stopped this morning. Many New Hampshire at or above 100 degrees today, and that's probably a real temperature. The real feel may be more. So this is really one of those uncomfortable, hot and humid days. It's called on reports, news-wise, extreme heat warning. Just be smart, be careful, especially in the outdoor stuff, especially if you have, I'm just going to say this. I can't believe we have to say this, but we do, because you hear these terrible stories. If you have anything you love at all, including a dog, a cat, and please, God forbid, a kid or a senior or a person, don't leave someone in a vehicle and run into a store for 20 minutes today out at noon in a hot parking lot. Please just be smart. I mean, especially some people with asthma or other, this is a hot one today. Now it does break. It does break going into tonight. So we do get a break. This is sort of the hottest of the last day or two. All right. I believe we have a newsmaker on, and she is Senate President Sharon Carson. And she joined us Friday. She's joining us live this morning after Governor Kelly Ayotte was in our studios yesterday morning, really doubling down on her frustration with lawmakers, including the Senate president and others, for passing a budget that Kelly Ayotte said they knew that she could not support, given the retirement piece and the contribution to Manchester over the next year or two, but especially the retirement piece. And Senate President Carson, nice enough, gracious enough to join us this morning. Senate President, thanks for joining us live. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse of NH.
Good morning, Jack. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for putting out that message about the weather. I think it's critical that people are aware of the heat index, and leaving a pet, leaving a child, leaving an elderly person in the car for any period of time is life-threatening, and they really should not be doing it. I saw a report that today is going to be the hottest day New Hampshire has experienced in over a decade.
Wow.
So Thank you for putting out that public warning. I think we should be talking about that a little bit more today. But I do think it's important that people get this message.
Now, I don't mean to make light of anything in terms of the state budget, what's happening in the Middle East. President's on his way to NATO. We're going to have a live report from NATO. But Senator, one of my favorite movies, is to keep it light before we get serious in the budget, is the most recent as well as the first, Top Gun Maverick. And in the new movie, it's ironic that Maverick, of course, was striking enriched nuclear targets. But there was a line with that actor. Oh, he became famous now because of the movie. J-Dog will help me his name. He played this supporting pilot. And he says, what is it between Maverick and Rooster? What is it between these two? So I have to ask, it almost is like, what is it between you and the Governor Ayotte right now? She's not too happy with you and other lawmakers, and you're standing the line. The governor is quite upset at the Senate and House, and I guess you was the leader in the Senate for passing a budget that the governor says the money was there. She had put in even money from slots to fund the retirement the way she needed. You knew she wouldn't support this, so why did you do it? So what's going on between you and Governor Ayotte, and where is this at? Because she's saying she's going to veto this budget.
Well, Jack, it's, we have our differences. As with anything, people sometimes just do not agree. I'd like to walk you back a little bit. I had very early on voiced my concern to the governor about Group 2. I was one of the folks, I was in the Senate in 2011, that worked on the Group 2, the changes that really needed to be made to keep the system from becoming insolvent. I don't think people realize how in danger we were of not being able to fund the existing pension system. So I tried to talk with her, and Jack, she sat there, looked me right in the eye and said, I will not negotiate. I will not compromise. That's not the New Hampshire way. That's not how we work here. And I tried to explain to her some of the history. She just didn't want to listen. And so when again, even after that meeting, we still tried to get some sort of compromise, get her to think about this in a different way. Senator Gray came up with an amendment. We presented it to her. She said she would look at it. Well, later on that day, we received a thumbs down emoji. I was like, well, okay. But, I tried to talk with her because there was a municipal impact. I called her. She said, no, there wasn't. But we ended up putting in an amendment that raised the cost even higher to address the municipal impact. So now we're talking about an impact of $340 million.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very, very difficult budget. I have talked about that consistently. We have had to make tough choices. When we had our first press release, one of the things the Senate really emphasized is we are going to live within our means. We are going to protect the taxpayers. The governor's plan hurts the taxpayers because if for whatever reason, and she's tied this to the video lottery, it should fail or they don't produce the revenue, the taxpayers are on the hook. So let me give you a couple numbers here.
Mm-hmm.
What she wants to do is going to cost $261 for every person in the state of New Hampshire, and it's going to be over $1,000 per family of 4. I got a call last night from a constituent who said the municipal governments, they just went through reassessment. They can't afford the taxes. How can I justify doing something like this? I can't. This issue with Group 2 was settled in 2011. We had to divide these two groups up with Tier A and Tier B. Tier A were people who had 10 years or more. They were vested. We respected that, and we made no changes whatsoever. We made changes to Tier B.
Mm-hmm.
We had to. And the biggest problem is spiking. And I can't repeat that enough. The House realized it, and I realized it. And that's what really drove the changes to the governor's plan in the committee of conference. No one knew. This was slipped into the budget by the House. It went to the Senate Finance, but it never had a public hearing in a policy committee. In fact, I didn't even want to put it in the budget because I felt if this is too expensive, this needs to go through a policy committee. But that didn't end up working. So let me explain to you and the listeners what spiking really is. You have an individual who has a base salary of $87,000,
Mm-hmm.
and they're headed toward retirement. Now, what we do is we do a look back and then create an average, and that's what their pension will be. what was happening is that as these folks are nearing the end of their career, they load up on overtime and special duties. And there are individuals currently that have a base salary of $87,000, but because of spiking, it is they are eligible to put in, they want to put in one individual over $272,000. That does not accurately reflect their base salary or their careers. They loaded up on overtime and special duties at the end of the career to spike their pension.
Understood.
This is one of the reasons why we got into trouble in the first place.
Right.
And we are saying, no, Governor, we're not going to allow this to happen.
What about Senate President Carson, the head of the SCA, Rich Gullah, yesterday after the governor's on, saying that if this doesn't fix itself and get funded, there will be a mass exodus of fire chiefs, senior people, some reports of 27 senior members of the Manchester Fire Department, 5 chiefs, 3 captains, 7 lieutenants, 12 senior firefighters will move off the job if their retirement is not fixed. What are those assertions concern you? Are they accurate?
No, because we heard the same threats back in 2011. And guess what? They didn't go anywhere. So look, we do not operate government on emotions or threats.
Yeah.
If they want to leave, they're free to leave. They will retire with the current pension they have now. We enhanced their benefit through what we did with the budget. We gave them more. And in fact, over the past 4 years, we have put $70 million into the retirement system on their behalf.
I guess the question... Go ahead, Senator. Finish.
No, I was going to say what these folks are looking for is that golden parachute that they want, so they're going to leave. Look, I guarantee you that if this passes the way the governor wants, they're leaving anyway because they got their golden parachute and they're going to move on. What
happens? What happens next or now? When does this go to when will this be voted on, the budget that the negotiators and you agreed to, the governor says, when is it going to be voted on?
Thursday.
So let's presume it passes and the governor vetoes it. I don't know if there's enough votes for an override of a veto. What's that, 2/3? I would imagine there's probably not. So then back to the drawing board, continuing resolution. What do you think is going to happen, Senator?
We are currently working on a concurrent resolution that will keep government open.
Okay.
We have had conversations with the Attorney General as well as the head of the Department of Administrative Services and she is threatening to veto a continuing resolution that will shut down state government. We don't even have a definition of what an essential person is. So everything will shut down. This is just impossible. This is an impossible situation. We are trying to protect the taxpayers of the state of New Hampshire. We should not be opening this back up. It's already resolved.
Are you saying the governor is not trying to protect the taxpayers of New Hampshire and what she plans to do?
Jack, I have no idea what she's trying to do.
Okay.
I really don't. She is threatening the 1.4 million people in the state of New Hampshire for the benefit of 1,550 people.
All right.
Do the math on that, Jack. And I can't, I can't figure this out. It's beyond belief. But this is what we've been struggling with. She refuses to compromise. She refused to negotiate at all, even though we tried.
All right.
And now we find ourselves in this position. And by the way, she's accused me of not calling her. Again, I think that's a little bit of misinformation. But let me put this out here for your readers, your listeners, so you can kind of understand what we're dealing with. Today, the governor is having a luncheon for only certain senators at the Bridges House. It's invitation only. Not every senator received an invitation, myself included.
As Senate President.
So, Yes. No,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay.
So you tell me what's going on,
All right.
Jack. Tell me. This is what we're
I
dealing
don't.
with.
I'm like an NHL referee. I'm just sitting in the middle, Senator. But we do need to run. We went long. You were very gracious and nice to call in with your perspective and position here. We'll stay fluid. Please stay in touch with the show the next few days. Senate President Carson, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Jack. I appreciate the opportunity.
Wow, I appreciate it. All right, we're going to come back on that, but we also have to take a break. We went long, and we have live reports coming out of the Netherlands as well. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a moment.
The Boston Red Sox are landscape and snow management firm, proudly serving commercial properties from Greater Manchester to Greater Boston. Visit them online at outdoorpride.com. Now, back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
J-Dog, I can blame it on the heat. I'm just going to let you know, let the cat out of the bag. Here's a scoop for you. I need to be off Friday, the celebrity guest host, Friday morning in this studio right here this chair, this studio. Friday hosting guest host. Good morning, New Hampshire. The Pulse of an H across our network and worldwide. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Former Governor, New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, going and making his debut as a 3-hour host, not just one of these 5-minute ABC or CNN or Fox hits. He's going big time. Governor Chris Sununu guest hosting for yours truly this Friday. Should be action packed. Plenty going on. I'm sure he'll have some great guests. J-Dog, I have to be fluid this morning with you as well. We went long there. We had a lot there with the Senate president calling in, making a lot of news. We've just had a couple of media requests for that interview. We'll get it up online. Senator Carson blasting back big time at Governor Kelly Ayotte over this budget feud right now. And J-Dog, do you want me to just take a minute or two and go to break? Because I know we have another interested party calling in a minute. It's up to you.
Let's do that. Also, poll question, Jack, if you got one.
Okay, I think it will be topical to what we just said.
Yeah.
Do you think Governor Ayotte should veto the budget that passed the House and Senate, or will pass? Do you think the governor should veto this budget, yes or no? Do you think the governor should veto? Is that fair?
We've asked that before.
Well, that's coming up, J-Dog. I don't know. I mean, I think I want to stay local on this one because this, J-Dog, the reason why I want to stay local is this. I have not seen, I just told this to one of the media folks who called me during the break who listened to that interview. I've not seen a battle between a Senate president of one party and a governor of the same party since Bill Bartlett, Senate president, and Judd Gregg, former governor. They were not the best of buddies for a while during a budget battle.
That wasn't yesterday, Jack. That was a long time ago.
I have not seen this, J-Dog. And no one saw this coming. I mean, Governor Ayotte is a new governor, Republican. She was going to work well with the legislature in the House and Senate, closely with them. She defeated Joyce Craig in the gubernatorial election by a wider margin, people thought. Senate President Jeb Bradley moved on, retired, regular on my show. He'll be, by the way, guest hosting Monday because I'm off for a day or two. Governor Sununu will be guest hosting the show this Friday, but Sharon Carson became the Senate president. Sharon Pack, the House leadership Republican, Senate Republican leadership, Senator Carson, new Senate president, and then all of a sudden, and you just heard that. I'm not going to put words in anyone's mouth. I do feel like a National Hockey League referee between I don't know, a couple players here. So are we going to the call, or do you want me to take a break?
Take the break, yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with who, J-Dog? Someone from the law enforcement side.
Mike Gihad.
Talking about
the Police
Association concerns with the budget. Back in a moment.
This is the Pulse of New Hampshire.
Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
I can't keep up with the, again, I do feel like that National Hockey League referee here. I mean, Friday's show we had, and yesterday's show we had the president of the State Employees Association calling in, the head of the professional firefighters in New Hampshire calling in, which I greatly appreciate. Governor Ayotte in our studios, just had Senator Carson, the Senate president, calling in. And now I believe, J-Dog, unscheduled but welcome, always welcome, and thank you for what they do. I believe the head of the Police Association, and I want to ask him to introduce himself, but I think it's Mike Geehad. And is that who's on, J-Dog? Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Jack. Yes, it's Mike on the line. Mike, the New Hampshire Police Association president. Thank you for taking my call this morning.
You're calling in, for a reason. Take it away, Mike.
So there's just a few things what we need to explain here. I know there's a question about what is Tier B? Tier B, and why are they always talked about within the state house, the legislature, the governors? Why is that an important topic?
Can I ask a quick question before you explain it?
Please.
Is Tier B the same as Group 2 or Group 1? Is it the same thing?
So yes, so I'm specifically going to be talking about Tier B, which is
Group 2.
1,500. Yes, Group 2, the 1,500 officers that everybody's always talking about.
Okay, take it away.
And the reason why the 1,500 officers or first responders between police and fire and corrections, the reason why these folks are really upset and they want things done, it's because what happened to them back in 2011. Back in 2011, a lot of these people, they missed the vested status, which is 10 years, by days, weeks, months. Now, they've been on the job for a very long time. They were promised a certain benefits when they got to that point, which is the vested status, and that was changed. And that's why these folks are really upset. We have an ethical responsibility to make them whole because we want the trust between the employees of the state and the legislature. That's the only reason why we keep coming back.
Okay, so it's hard to boil this down when you're dealing with a big budget and very complex issues. The head of the firefighters yesterday, Mike, put it this way, and thank you for what you do and represent, by the way, big part of our
Thank you.
Quality of life here. The firefighter yesterday said from Portsmouth, Jack, we're not asking for $1 more. We're just asking for what was promised when we joined. Is that accurate or not?
That's absolutely true. These are the benefits that these folks lost. It's almost like the rug got pulled from underneath them without them even knowing. A lot of them were like, I'm a day short from being vested. Had it been done in a way where it's not unusual for states to revise retirement system, right? But they do it moving forward, not midstream, not a day away from being vested, not hours from being vested.
Mm-hmm.
They do it in a way where nobody gets hurt moving forward. So now the folks that signing on this job, they know what they're getting themselves into. It's almost like you taking a mortgage at 2%. 3 weeks later, your mortgage spikes up to 6%. What would you be doing?
Yeah.
You're either going to go look for another bank, or you're just going to be like, come and take the house.
Mike, let me ask you this.
This is exactly what we're dealing with.
As head of you're the New Hampshire Police Association. Is that essentially it?
Yes, sir.
Is this?
That's it.
I got some numbers. I have some numbers here. I want to run these by you. If the budget that Senator Carson, the negotiators passed, will be voted on this Thursday, the one that Governor Ayotte is going to say she's going to veto. If that budget as is passes, do you agree or not, representing police officers in New Hampshire, that let's just look at Londonderry Police Department. 8 senior officers would likely retire, including the chief, the deputy chief, 8, captain, and you go down to lieutenants. Londonderry, how about this one? Derry Police Department. 13 senior members, leadership, may retire. Manchester Police, undetermined at this point. They're already dealing with almost 20 vacancies. Belknap Sheriff's Office. I'm only go back to another one. police. So are these numbers remotely accurate, or do you think they're exaggerated, Mike?
No, they're accurate because this is leadership. We have these folks; they're leaders in first responders.
Yeah.
We, like you said, chiefs, captains, lieutenants. This is what we want to stay. We want them to remain on the job. However, if you pass the budget the way it is, or it's going to be on Thursday, if they vote for it, which we urge all legislatures not to vote for this, you're adding years on these folks.
And this isn't a problem. This is a point, Mike. I know the state police have like almost 50 openings. It wasn't many years ago in New Hampshire, maybe I'm guessing 10, 12 years ago, where you want to become a state trooper or a police officer in Londonderry or Manchester. You probably had to wait in line because the demand for the openings was that high. But I think the state police has 50 openings. If these senior folks, lieutenants, captains, chiefs walked off the job, Senator Carson said they probably would do it anyway. In other words, retire. And there's a recruitment problem in the front end that could lead to a shortage in police on the streets. Is it or in the managing law enforcement? Is that accurate?
So, Jack, put it this way: back in 2011, when the changes were made, these guys are still working. They're still in their positions with the hope that someday we get someone to restore. Governor Ayotte gets it. We support her 100% for her efforts. Correct. So we want this thing to be restored because we don't want to leave. We want to stay. We've been here. We live, we work, we pay taxes in the state of New Hampshire. We want to stay working. My advice has always been, let's stay calm. Let's listen to what's happening. Governor Ayotte, we thank her for all her efforts. We really do. We support her 100%. And if she has it in her budget, it's more than likely it is the right thing to do.
Mike, before I let you go, thank you for calling in and weighing in. What department, where do you work?
I'm a detective with the Salem, New Hampshire Police Department.
Thanks for what you do, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Wow, thank you. J-Dog, I haven't seen this in a long time. Usually in politics today, J-Dog, it's the Senate president or the Senate leader battling with the president, for example, in Washington, and they're in different political parties. You know, one's a Republican, one's a Democrat. These are Republican leaders in New Hampshire at odds, namely the governor, Kelly Ayotte, Senate President Sharon Carson, both Republicans at odds, big time. And you heard the Senate president, and I give her credit for stating her case, standing by this. This is going to be voted on Thursday and vetoed, I'm sure, right after by the governor. You heard Senator Carson say they're trying to draft planning on who's an essential employee and the continuing resolution stuff. And she, at one point, she said, this is not the New Hampshire way. Governor Ayotte doesn't want to negotiate or agree to anything else. And also saying there's a luncheon today. The governor's hosting a key state senators, the governor, Republican governor, and Senator Carson, the Republican Senate president, saying she's not on the guest list. She's not invited. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you typically see in Washington between Republicans and Democrats. And on that note, I do want to make a comment before we go to a break. And coming up, we're going to hear more, and we're going to get a live report, the very, 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 very latest on everything about Israel and Iran from the NATO summit live in the Netherlands in The Hague, or when I visited there, Den Haag, The Hague in Holland, where the Netherlands, where President Trump is en route now. He left Washington this morning after verbally blasting both Israel and Iran on keeping this peace deal. We're going to hear from John Decker, our own White House correspondent. But I just want to make a quick comment, and I'm trying to find the exact reference. But I saw a story last night that, and I want to be accurate here because it does make me think a little bit on politics because I do believe that when President Trump expressed earlier, whether it was last night or this morning, that Israel and Iran have been fighting each other so much, and he's so frustrated with them not respecting the peace deal that he brokered after the weekend, that he said they don't know what the F they're doing, but he said the word. And I think it's refreshing to hear a leader, especially the president, just express themselves. Tell us what you think. It doesn't get more clear than that. And yesterday I asked Governor Ayotte in the studio, unrelated to the state budget flapper battle or feud, family feud right now, what she thought about the U.S. strike Saturday. She was very clear. She supported it. She said when she was U.S. Senator, she was very concerned about the nuclear capability and enrichment in the program and the plutonium and what the Iranians were doing. When she was senator, and that was a number of years ago, she said the action the U.S. took was precise, strategic, and successful, and she supports it. Now, I heard last night, and I'm just going to say this, and they're both welcome on my show, and Maggie Goodlander fairly recently was on the show. She's the Democrat member of New Hampshire's federal second congressional seat, and U.S. Senator Maggie Hassan, whom we haven't heard from in a very long time. I'm just saying, I haven't. And I heard last night some report that they both want to know more about what, quote unquote, led up to the United States striking those nuclear targets in Iran Saturday night or Saturday. What led up to that, question mark. They want to know what led up to that. Representative Goodlander, in all due respect, you know way better than that. Your husband is the former national security advisor for President Biden. National security advisor for President Biden, Jake Sullivan. Ask him what led up to it. Ask your husband what led up to Saturday night strike. I think he'd tell you exactly what led up to it. And you served in the Navy, I believe, and you know what led up to it. Years and years of unchecked, crossing red line, nuclear enrichment and development for nuclear bomb or bombs, plural. That's what led up to Saturday night strike. You know that. That's what led up to it. Israel started striking Iran because of their progress on developing a nuclear bomb. The United States, the Joint Chiefs, the NSA, the CIA, all those folks your husband used to work for and with in national security presented a case to the president, and he had to make a decision. We need to strike now these three sites to set back any nuclear offensive bomb or weapon ambitions Iran has, and we can do it. And this is the operation to do it. That's what led up to it. 603-228-2080. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. And you should say, do you support what we did or not? Do you support what the United States did against Iran or not? But to ask what led up to it, I think you can find that answer. Or you know it. 603-228-2080. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath, the illustrious one. J-Dog on the boards. We're back in a few.
News
Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
You know, we have another unscheduled caller from the law enforcement side, just hearing his colleague Mike, hearing the Senate president earlier, weighing in now, and I'm gonna ask him to introduce himself, and I believe it's Mike.
No, my name's Eric.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. Eric, your full name and who do you represent?
Yeah, I'm with the New Hampshire Police Association. I'm a member there, just like the majority of law enforcement officers throughout the state. Just about anybody can join the New Hampshire Police Association. Your department can join, or you can join as a member. I've been on the job for about 18 years, and when I heard Mike call in, it just, touched on a few thoughts. We support Mike and we support Kelly. They both support us. We're very appreciative. One of the confusing things is, Group 2 retirement, Tier B, Tier A. Back in 2011, anybody who did not have 10 years on, they pulled the carpet out from underneath you. So we are referred to as middle tier, and that's the fight. This is anybody who didn't have 10 years on before 2011. These people lost their benefits. They were promised a 20-year retirement, and then they got added 5 years on. That is the fight. We're not asking for anything more than what we were promised. Imagine if you said, hey, I'll give you $10 to mow my lawn. And then when I'm almost done mowing your lawn, you go, I'm only going to give you $5 now. Yeah. Of course, somebody's going to have an issue with that. Yeah. They're going to add 5 years on to everybody. They're going to take away your age for retirement. This is affecting 1,800 people, and we've been fighting this since 2012. If they did it the right way, if they just said starting January 1st, 2012, all new members, this is going to be the new 25-year retirement, they know what they're signing up for, it wouldn't have been an issue. Instead, they took a backlog of people from 9 years, 364 days on, all the way back to 1 day, because it was cheaper and they knew that they could save a ton of money by doing that.
Well, Eric, I think you hit the nail. I mean, at least you explained it very succinctly. What department do you work with?
Right now, I'm in 3 departments, actually, but I'm state, local, and federal right now.
Well, thank you for what you do.
We're all watching this. The term spiking, it sounds pretty awful, doesn't it? But let's talk about what spiking is. It's forced overtime due to extreme shortages.
Yeah.
And what is that causing? It's causing burnout rate. We had to have the National Guard go in and assist with the jails and prisons, because these guys can't physically do it any longer. And they're getting so burnt out, they're leaving the profession. And
Eric, I think you would agree with me. You're getting good candidates to join folks like the state police or police departments, but you're not getting enough. The pool is shrinking. There's shortages and openings like I've never seen in the state. Eric, we got to run to the top of the hour. You're welcome here anytime. Thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Bye.
This is a big deal. Started Friday on the show. It's been going over a week, and I don't know if this is going to all lead to a special session, but this is a real big topic. And I really don't sometimes mean to kind of take a verbal shot at one of my former alma maters in television news broadcasting, WMUR TV, but as former vice president and news director of WMUR TV, I'm looking at the news coverage this morning with all this stuff going on. When I was there, we would have had 4 different TV crews, including Carl Cameron at the State House, talking to the Senate president, interviewing the governor, talking to the head of the state employees, talking to law enforcement, talking to firefighters. It would have been the complete local coverage. This is the state budget for 2 years. And instead, we hear the Celtics are trading away a key contributor, or I know it's hot out. It's like they're in a news coma. But you know what? Thank goodness my show becoming a tennis court or a ring for this exchange, and I'm flattered that we're getting all these folks calling in, wanting you, the taxpayers, to know their side and position, including the feud between the Senate president, a Republican, and Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte. We're back with a live report from The Hague next.
Hi, this is Corey McDonald from McDonald Law in Hampton Falls, and this is our